A statistic that will quite frankly blow minds. What's going on, friends, and welcome on back to Football Therapy with me, your host Jan. I do hope you're doing well, mate. I really do hope that. Welcome on home, welcome back to Chelsea News, of course, the daily series here on the channel where I reflect on what's being said about Chelsea, giving you my thoughts on it, as always. More importantly, asking for yours. In today's video, we're going to talk about the Qarabag game a little bit, a stat that somehow got past me. Maybe football's changing and I just haven't realised. A little bit with an injury update, certain players, when are they going to return? And the big discussion point, of course, one that I'm now potentially changing my mind on, is should Estevao start for Chelsea? My position has firmly been, well, this young 18-year-old boy's come in. He's been a breath of fresh air attacking, but he's good off the bench. He's good as this sort of wild card in the modern landscape of tactical football, when you've got so many instructions for shape and tracking back and being defensive. Is he really the right guy to be starting on the wing? Well, my position on that has been tested, and I want to speak about it in today's video. So welcome on back, guys. Really pleased to have you all here on the channel, hanging out with me today. You are, of course, all welcome. So if you're yet to subscribe, consider doing so. We're nearing on the big 200k. Very happy to have you all. And in the meantime, thanks for liking, hyping up the video, all that good stuff. Now, let's get into it. First of all, check this out. I got this from the ChelseaChronicle.com. Chelsea will be fuming as ball was only in play for 46 minutes in the Champions League game versus Carabag. We played a total of 98 minutes, so the ball was in play for less than half of that. Now, football is a funny game. You get this all the time. You see it in the Premier League with time wasters, perhaps the underdogs taking long on throw-ins, goal kicks. Of course, they've implemented that new rule. If the goalkeeper holds the ball for too long, the opposition team get a corner. And, you know, generally in a 90-minute game, I think the average is the ball's in play for like an hour-ish or 65 minutes. Like, it's crazy how long the ball actually isn't being kicked about or isn't live in play. This is why a lot of people wondered why in the future there'll be like a 60-minute clock or something, like a bit like American sports, or like, you know, when the ball's out of play, there's like a clock that stops. Do you know what I mean? And before you know it, we'll be playing quarters like NFL. But to be honest, this is pretty crazy to have the ball only in play for 46 minutes. Am I using this as an excuse? Absolutely not. To be honest, I did do a match reaction to that. Check it out if you're interested. I'm kind of okay. A lot of people are losing their heads a little bit. The 2 goals we conceded in that game was just a little bit of a horror show from Joel Hatto. Maresca decided to keep him on for the second half. He didn't make any mistakes, so that was the correct decision. So he didn't, you know, leave with awful dented confidence, if that makes sense. He says, like, you know, see it out, everything's okay. It was fine, but ultimately it was his mistakes that made it not okay. The error for the goal in open play, and of course, the handball for the penalty. I mean, ultimately, we scored a couple of goals. We probably should have got the 3rd goal. We created, like, moments. It's a 2,500 away trip to Azerbaijan. There has to be some rotation. Carabag have been pretty good this season. I know their squad values like nothing compared, you know, like an absolute tiny speck of dust compared to ours. But all these, do you know what I mean? He actually went with a stronger lineup than I thought he would. We can criticize everyone, but the truth is, it's one of those things, isn't it? It's a horrendous away game. Like, how are we going to Azerbaijan away in Europe? They arrived 1 a.m. the night before, and then they go and play this game, and Carabag are well rested and prepared for this game. I know it sounds like excuses, but there's such a whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, for me, it's yeah, we should win. Such a high profile result for them, even the draw. But to be honest, like, if it wasn't for a 19-year-old new defender making a couple of mistakes and, you know, a few nearly moments, I hardly looked at that and thought, well, this is our club's in a state of disaster from that performance/result. Of course, it's very, very frustrating. I don't mind us losing to this Bayern Munich team like we did away in Bavaria. They beat us 3-1. The only frustrating thing about that game is we gave them all 3 goals. It was an own goal, a penalty, and I think it was Malo Gusto who just decided to play in Harry Kane and assist him. So that's the frustrating thing about that game, but Bayern Munich have played 16 games this season. They've won all 16 games, so losing to them. And of course, if you looked at all the games we've played so far and you say we got 7 out of a potential 12, you go, ugh, really, where did it go wrong? Because you'd assume we'd lose to Bayern, but you'd think, oh, did we lose to Ajax or something, you know, and obviously beat Qarabag. It is what it is. We don't have to go to Azerbaijan anymore. We can stay in Europe. We go away to Italy twice, of course, Atalanta and Napoli. But we've got the, is it a Greek team or a Cypriot team we're playing? We can definitely qualify, maybe have to have playoff games, but we've got a sort of big squad to sort of, in theory, deal with that. It's just not necessarily the crisis. Of course, get another Premier League win this weekend against a managerless Wolves side, but I wanted to reflect a little bit more soberly on that game. Of course, I always do instant match reactions if it's not a late kickoff. I don't always necessarily do it if it is. Anyway, let's talk about some injured players and when they are returning to the team. So I'm getting this from Football.London. Jake Stokes has aggregated some news on certain players. I'm going to read about just a few. Of course, Romeo Lavia went off injured. Maresca said, we feel shame for him, especially for him. He's not able to be fit for a long period. We'll see now. It's too early to understand what kind of injury. I think it's his quad. Yeah, it's so frustrating, the Romeo Lavia situation. People are sort of like, we haven't seen what he can do yet. I want to remind you guys, he's so highly rated. You know, just recently, I've referenced a couple of times on the channel, Cole Palmer said he's the most underrated footballer in the world. I know it's his boy, but still, Romeo Lavia is meant to be like an insane talent. We've seen it in moments how he can, I often sort of, you know, describe him as a catalyst, someone that makes the team better. Like, you don't rely on like a Caicedo or like a certain player to do a really important role, but if you've got these like foundational blocks in your team, and you add a Romeo Lavia to play certain, you know, line-breaking passes and playing out of the press and stuff like that and dribbling and doing these real little wicked vertical passes, it makes the team better. It's like this sprinkle of, you know, some sort of seasoning, some sort of high quality seasoning that takes you from a good team to a great team. Maybe a little bit of he's kind of like a functional luxury player. It's hard to describe. So, but we haven't seen that yet properly. So it's really frustrating for him, for us. But, you know, we'll survive without him. Of course, Dario Rasugo will come back as the proper backup to Caicedo. He's more profiled to be an appropriate backup to Caicedo, while Lavia for me isn't. Rasugo won't be back until January, I don't think. Let's move on and speak about a couple more players. So Pedro Neto, of course, he didn't travel to Baku as a precaution, but apparently he is okay. He's got a small problem, and he's expected to return this weekend on Saturday for Wolves. I actually think he'll be facing his former side, Wolves, because he'll technically be rested, but we're going to speak about that more broadly in a moment, about the whole Estevao. Should he be the starting guy for Chelsea at the moment? But let's talk about a few more injured players. Now, Cole Palmer's a huge one. He is, of course, our talisman. Maresca said he hopes he returns for the Barcelona clash. He's not taking any sessions with the team at the moment. I would love to have Cole here tomorrow and for every game. Unfortunately, he's injured, but of course, we want him back very, very soon. Cole Palmer's a big one. It's a massive one. Look, as much as we've spoken about Estevao coming in and being this superstar, young, attacking, talismanic attacker like Cole Palmer, I keep saying this because it is confusing me a little bit. I didn't watch Estevao loads for Palmeiras, apart from, you know, the highlight clips and watching him in the Club World Cup. Playing as a winger, I've seen him play for Chelsea, you know, almost always as a winger, and he looks amazing as a winger, running down the side, cutting inside, finding space, doing all the things a really, you know, a right winger does to find real high value in the attack. And I'm thinking, keep him there. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's doing really, really good stuff there. Whereas perhaps I haven't seen him operate in the hole as a number 10 and do really well. I mean, maybe he will, because he seems to think that's his, like, final resting place. Because that sounds morbid. That's his, you know, where he's going to play in the team long term. That's where Maresca sees him. That's where he sees himself. Great if it works, you know? But at the moment, I've seen you operate down the flank and you are ripping players a part there. So I'm kind of happy to see you play there. Cole Palmer, though, he's so important because he's a central playmaker. We've seen Cole Palmer play on the right, but we are missing Cole Palmer to play in the hole, in the number 10, in the free role, and he works very hard as well. Do you know what I mean? It's not just sort of fruiting around like passing the ball with a cigar in his mouth. He presses the life out of opposition and he creates so well. We are missing Cole Palmer, so having him back for the home game against Barcelona would be huge, but we can't mess about with this. He's got a long-term groin injury and needs to properly heal. We need to be totally sure that we're not going to aggravate it and cause long-term problems, because he's still young, Cole. He's got a long Chelsea career in front of him. Let's make sure it's like a superb one, basically, and we haven't screwed it up by playing him through injury. And finally, Benoit Badiashile. Now, Benoit is a player we are missing. Of course, we are missing left-sided, left-footed centre-backs. We saw Jarell Hatto have a bit of a nightmare playing in that role, last night in the Champions League. Benoit Badiashile actually sort of winning the fans' favours back. He's a good operator. He's strong, he's tall. He actually is quite good at passing, and of course, he's left-footed. He plays in that role naturally. Now, he will be back hopefully after this next international break. That's what reports are saying. Yes, already we've come to the third international break. Every season I say it feels ruddy weird, it does my head in, but we're back. Another international break, which is annoying, but hopefully he returns and stays fit, because he's becoming one of these players, like your Fofanas, your Lavias, that seemingly always injured. Dario Asugo, he'll return in the new year. I think he had surgery on his quad. He did his quad away in under 21 duty with his national side. So he'll come back and will be really, really good and some welcome relief to Caicedo. We thought we had that with Lavia yesterday, and 4 minutes in, Caicedo's getting ready to come on. So maybe we do need this international break, but then again, Caicedo's not going to be rested. He's going to be flying around the world playing for his national team. So as soon as we can get some of these players back, but maybe not quite the injury crisis as we thought. And of course, we know we can play Reece James in central defensive midfield to a really high effect as well. He plays really well there. He did against Tottenham. Tottenham scored loads of goals midweek in the Champions League. By the way, did you see that Mickey van der Ven goal? Insane. Remember we watched that Kurt Zouma run against Ajax and we thought he was going to score one of the best goals of all time, running through the whole entire team, this centre-back, and then he put it in Rose Ed. Well, Van der Ven finished it beautifully. It was rather frustrating. So yeah, they can score goals, Tottenham, but with Reece James in midfield and with that good tactical setup that Maresca deployed, we kept them to 0.05 XG at home in their own gaff. So Reece James can do a job there and in central defensive midfield, and of course you just deploy Malo Gusto at right back, or even a Josh Chiampong at sort of that reserved tucked in right back, and then the left back goes forward. There are options, yeah? There's going to be rotation. Of course, rotation is the dirty word for Chelsea at the moment. We shouldn't rotate. This is what happens. It creates dysfunction in the team, lack of chemistry, and we end up drawing to Qarabag. I get it, but there's also an element of needs must. So on the subject of rotation and who starts, let's talk about that boy, Estevao. So yes, the Brazilian sensation won man of the match in the Champions League game last night. He is Chelsea's top goal scorer in all competitions. The 18-year-old who's never played in Europe. That's right. Now, clearly, this kid has got a gift from God. Maybe he's going to be better than Cole Palmer. The way they talk about him, it's absolutely insane. And the way he's come into English Premier League football and been like, I'm going to get stuck in, I'm not going to roll around and flop about, and I'm just going to be direct and believe in myself, and he's just looked simply sensational. Now, of course, my position, and I'm going to try and talk my way through my opinion now, because my position up until yesterday has been this, and maybe it still is, I'm kind of confused, is he's amazing, and he will be a starter for Chelsea because he's going to be a Premier League superstar. Yeah, for me that's a non-negotiable. That's how I see it genuinely already, and many of you will feel the same. But he has just arrived, he doesn't speak English, he is 18, he's never played in Europe, and Premier League football at the very top end, you don't carry passengers. I know if you ever do one, it will probably be in a wing position, but generally everyone has to track back, everyone has to work hard, everyone needs to be able to retain meticulous tactical instruction and have experience. And that's why on the right wing you turn to your boy Pedro Neto, who's played really well in the Premier League for years for both Wolves and Chelsea. He's only 25. Speaking about, injured players that have become whole again, I've spoken recently. We've got the miracle juice on Pedro Neto because he was made of glass when he played, for Wolves, and now he's always available. He's running his absolute nuts off for 90 minutes, and he's playing in like right wing, left wing, false nine, and he'll always make the runs. He doesn't get too frustrated when he's not found by his teammates, and that's quite often actually. So you think, right, well, you start Pedro Neto, he'll press, he'll track back, and then later on in the game, when the opposition's tired, you bring on this absolutely sensational, God-given talent, Estevao, to run at tired opponents, and they just can't do anything about it. It seems like the perfect setup. But at what point do we have the discussion of, actually, Estevao is just too good to not play football or as much as possible for Chelsea? Do you maybe do it the other way around? Start Estevao against opponents, just go at them, it'll scare the absolute ruddy sugar out of them, do you know what I mean? For 60 minutes. Maybe he'll leave vulnerabilities in behind him, maybe he'll be a bit lightweight on the ball, but he can just shock them. We get a couple of goals early, and then you bring on a canny operator like Pedro Neto that will defend better, that will play the percentages a little bit more. That's the term, isn't it? Playing the percentages. Like, actually, no, I should track back here. No, I should play that pass. Like safe gamblers do, where Estevao doesn't even think about that. He just goes for it. He just real Samba boy Joga Benito stuff. Do you know what I mean? Whereas, and then of course you bring on the percentage player like Neto, who will work hard, who'll play, the high value, safer passes and all that kind of stuff. I'm really unsure. I'm kind of happy with Ever at the moment because I like Pedro Neto, and I actually think this season, broadly, and the end of last season, and definitely the Club World Cup, he's been in great form, and he's been such a reliable operator for Chelsea that I think Pedro Neto still deserves to start. But it's becoming a very interesting conversation when you just see Estevao on the pitch and you think, if he's not injured, I mean, he went down, it looked like he had a bit of a cramp or something at the end of last night. He's not going to, he's just travelled to Azerbaijan and played 90 minutes and ran his socks off. So he was, he's not going to be starting on the weekend. But say you've got arrested Pedro Neto shortly, after the international break. Yeah, let's just say after the international break. Do you just go, you know what? With the longer we have Estevao on the pitch, the better. You don't. It's going to become a conversation. I'm kind of in between at the moment. I'll be very interested to hear what you guys think. So let me know how you feel down in the comment section below. Other than that, I'm gonna keep it moving, man. So keep it locked. Thank you for liking and subscribing. Back every day here, of course. So turn the bell notifications icon on. Turn that icon on. That's hard to say. When you subscribe, if you choose to subscribe. But you're all welcome, of course. All right then. Enjoy the football. Peace.
You ain't so tough with that bad boy tuck. I'ma get it how I'm living. I'ma walk the walk. Outline my lines. I rap through thought. Body bag the verse. Outlined in chalk. In my life seen trouble, hustle on the double, silence on the trigger like my pick got a muzzle. Yo, chick like to guzzle, bad boy stay in trouble. I only love this paper, sorry I don't. I laugh me, baby.